Okay. Good morning, everybody. Thank you again for joining us today for session 2. We've got 2 different speakers here today. We're starting out with Brittany, who's going to give us an overview of the client experience, and I think you'll learn all some new good things from her. And then we're going to be having a session on proposal execution, which is going to be done by Chris LaPel. So as with the previous sessions, please make sure that your camera's on so we can see you. And if there's any questions, you can make some comments in the chat session, in the chat, using the chat feature. Raise your hand if you've got questions. And I think that's about it. Brittany, do you have anything else in particular you'd like me to let folks know?
Nope.
Okay. All right. Well, enjoy, everybody. I'm going to mute myself while the others speak.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Brittany. I've worked at LaBella for almost 9 years now. I started off doing marketing in the civil engineering department here in Rochester. And a couple years back, I left to start a client experience program here at LaBella. Most people have no idea what that means, so that's why I'm going to tell you about it today. We're going to talk about what the client experience is, why do we have a program, why do we pay for these resources, what's the whole point of everything, and then we'll go into what that program really looks like here at LaBella. So I'll get started. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions. Heather, maybe you can help me keep an eye out if something is urgent, or we can grab them at the end. Excited to talk experience today. It's a word you're going to hear a lot of in the next 40 minutes or so. So I like to start off with kind of defining what the client experience means. A lot of people think that client experience equals good project. There's a lot more to it than that, which is why we kind of like to have this session. So there's 3 main experiences that pretty much every company is giving off at all times. Restaurants, places that make widgets, professional services, stores you go into, getting your oil changed. These things are always happening. One of them is the brand experience. The brand experience tells people what it will be like to work with your company, gives your company an external personality, and starts building some kind of like expectations of what it might be like. This is done through websites, how we talk about ourselves, what we do in the community, what everything looks like, and how we talk about everything. So that's kind of what the branding experience is. A marketing team is typically in charge of a branding experience. And the branding experience is very closely tied in with the employee experience, which is what you are all experiencing all day, every day. That includes a lot of things, including how engaged you are in a company. Do you identify with the mission? Do you think it has good purpose? Do you like what you do? Do you hate your coworkers? Do you love your coworkers? All of this kind of flows into what your experience looks like. And if the branding experience and the employee experience are not well put together, there can be a pretty big gap there. If our website is like, we have the nicest employees ever, but our employees are absolutely miserable, that's going to cause a disconnect. And we do make these promises publicly through our branding things. This is a screenshot of our website really quickly. We talk about how we're powered by partnership, we're innovative, we are friendly, we help you come and find solutions. So if people have never talked to us before, they're already getting an idea here of what we are. We even talk about on our recruitment page what kind of people we're looking for, which gives people an expectation of the people that they might be working with. So there's a lot out there already that's kind of building up these expectations for a prospective customer. And that's where the client experience comes in. Professional services firms are really starting to pay a lot of attention to customer experience because sometimes it can be hard to differentiate them. I'm sorry for some civils, but this is the example I always use. Sometimes a water main project is just taking a water main out and putting a new one in, right? It's like there's only so many ways to get super creative, super fancy, and stand out from the crowd in what you're going to be doing. But one way you can is by providing an exceptional client experience that's notably above other consultants. And for this to work, it needs to align with the branding experience and the employee experience. So all of these things work together to kind of be the delivery system of everything that we do. And like I mentioned before, it's not just here are your drawings, this is going to work, and the contractor installed it correctly. Client experience starts before we talk to clients. It happens when we're proposing to clients. It happens when we're talking to them every day. It happens when we run into them out in the wild at like a conference or something like that. And we're just consistently delivering client experience, whether or not we're paying attention to it. So the point of this presentation is to try to like plant the seed that we are always doing this and how we can be more intentional about it. We like to mention too, like the marketing team here at LaBella is great. They do a wonderful job with branding, messaging, website, everything, but there's no amount of marketing, communications, email blasts that can save people when they're having an actually bad experience. I like to use Subway here because their entire branding shtick is eating fresh, right? People want to eat there because they eat fresh. It's healthier, you might lose weight, et cetera, et cetera. But every 6 to 8 months, there's some kind of weird scandal about what's going on at Subway. Most people, I don't think of Subway as an incredibly fresh, healthy, high quality food vendor anymore. So this is where your branding essentially gets discredited. So we are trying to avoid that as much as possible with our team here at LaBella. When you are a project manager, you might start working on getting new clients, working with current clients, and having a more active role with them. And something that you'll learn very quickly is a lot of our business strategy is sort of like a funnel, right? The leadership team has a meeting. They decide that they want more clients in this area doing this kind of work. They want to grow here, expand there. And they say, okay, let's go find some new clients. We'll attract them. We'll meet them at a conference. We will meet with them over 2 years before a big project comes out. We'll follow up. And hopefully, if we do a good job in those business development efforts, they'll send us an RFP, we submit on it, and we win it. Great, good job to us. We did the goal, check it off the list. Boss, I did it, let's go. And this funnel is very, very normal in the everyday life. It is how we do get new business. But from a client experience perspective, we really like to emphasize that we might not want to end it there at the end of that funnel. We really want to then use this opportunity with these clients to start building loyal, long-term clients who love working with us and also love talking about why they love working with us. So we like to call it a bow tie versus a funnel, where the client experience kind of takes over to help build these long-term relationships. Why do we want long-term relationships? We want them because it's incredibly beneficial for both us and a client when we know each other very well. When people know us and trust us, it's a lot easier to cross-sell to them. We can cross-sell all different services. They have an inherent trust built in us that they're more likely to try new things with us. When clients are very satisfied with us and how we are, it's easier to get more revenue out of them because they'll hire us longer over time. They're likely to pay us more for services that they're happy with. They're more kind about change orders, stuff like that. And oftentimes it just builds up and then it becomes this very interconnected relationship. A lot of people know that getting a new client is often 7 times more expensive than just maintaining an existing one. This has because of those years of business development that goes into it, your travel, your hotel, your conferences, you're meeting new people, a lot of people, I think Chris will probably mention this too, but the average proposal can cost upwards of $10,000 to put together. So all that stuff with these new clients is very expensive when we're not making any money from them. So that's why we like to see how we can kind of do as much as we can for our current clients. And also in professional services businesses, there's a lot of referrals that go around. People call references. They want to talk about how experiences were. So if we are providing a good experience, we're likely to have good referrals, which is very important for this new business side of things. After people like us, and we have a good client experience program, they're getting good client experience, they're having different touch points throughout the organization, it helps create what's called a zippered relationship, which is incredibly important, especially in our industry, because a lot of people tend to follow project managers that they like, right? If a project manager that someone really likes moves firms, their next job might go to that new firm because they miss their project manager. So we're going to talk a little bit about when you kind of jump around on different teams and everything later, but when we keep this all in mind and we deliver a good client experience program, it helps with those kind of situations. We also are always looking for people who are willing to say they like working with us, because in this day and age, it's important. People want to know what other people have experienced. Like I said before, with everything, right? People look up reviews for restaurants, service providers, everything. And it's, if you have no reviews available and no one's speaking to their experience, it can be seen as a very big detractor for how safe you are as an option. So we really are always looking for that. Our team is constantly trying to get client testimonials put on the website and stuff like that. And this is all called social proof. It's why yard signs work really well when people vote, because if all your neighbors like a candidate, you're going to be like, well, maybe I like them too, even if you don't know anything about them, just from seeing that other people approve. It's why Geico says they have a 97% satisfaction rate in every single one of their commercials, because that just infers you're going to have a good experience with us. So we're always looking for that kind of stuff that we can share, put on our website, put on our socials, stuff like that. Very valuable. So we're all assuming that these clients are happy that we're talking about. So how do we know if they're happy or not? We do this a couple different ways. We do have a feedback program here that we use at LaBella, where we get information from clients a couple different ways. And when firms tend to measure client satisfaction, they tend to be more profitable, which I think is relatively straightforward. Happy clients equals more profits. Mad clients who might fire us or leave would not lend to being more profitable. And it helps us learn about clients. When we're able to get some quantitative data about our clients, we might be able to see some things that project teams might not see because they don't have a global view. For example, if we have surveys come in from renewable energy clients, and we have like 50 surveys from New York renewable energy, and we have 50 from Virginia, and they have incredibly different priorities on what they find important, we might be able to tailor future proposals or approaches to a project based on what that client is looking for. So that's really important to us. We try to do that as much as we can, and it helps us find ways that we can speak to people to differentiate ourselves. So this listening program that we like to call our feedback program, it can be electronic email surveys, or it can be meetings with me. I have client meetings throughout the year with clients all over the globe, so it doesn't matter where they are. Globe is probably a little aggressive there, but all over the country. So basically what happens when I have a personal meeting with project teams, I will interact with the project managers. I'll get some background on what's going on with the projects, what's going on with the relationship. Then I reach out and see if people want to have a meeting with me. And when they do, we have great discussions. I usually get to talk to them about how things have been going before, during, and after projects. And then if there's anything that we can improve, we kind of set up a improvement plan, and then I follow up with them over time. So it's really helpful. And I will say that I hate saying this, but we get really good feedback about asking for feedback. So a lot of times when people take our surveys, and I always respond to surveys. So when they do that and I respond, people say, thank you so much for the opportunity. I'm glad you wrote back to me. I've done 100 surveys. No one's ever gotten back to me. And when I have these meetings with people that are more one-on-one, they tend to really appreciate. A lot of times they'll say, we're really surprised that you have this resource. You have like this whole extra person who just does this, because they want to know how things are going with us. And it can mean a lot to them and make them feel really good and like we're paying attention to them. So we get really good feedback about asking for feedback. A lot of times people are worried about bothering people, or they don't want it to seem like they don't know what's going on, but we have seen none of that kind of reaction to this program thus far. Another thing that we're hoping to do, our data set is still growing, so it's not huge yet, but once we have a lot more data from clients, we'll be able to do some analysis with which clients are really worth spending our time on and which ones might not be. If we are making different amounts of money with different clients, and maybe we're spending a ton of money to work with them and they're never happy, though that's not a good situation for either of us, because we're expending a ton of effort. They're not happy. They want more. We're not making enough money. So on the flip side, if we are making the right amount of money and they're happy, like that's a good match. That means we're probably on the right track. If we're getting really great fees off of a project, but they're really unhappy, then they're at risk for churn or firing us or suddenly disappearing. So once we know a little bit more about the satisfaction rates, compared with profitability on different projects, it might help us, maybe we don't propose to a certain client at some point because we're not making any money and they don't like working with us that much anyways. Then we can spend those time and resources on other clients where it will be a lot more valuable. So this is one of like the future goals of the program. We don't have quite enough stuff to work on here, but it is slowly coming in all the time. So a lot of feedback that we get, we try to just like let everybody know, perceptions are reality for clients. A lot of times they see things differently than we do, and that's okay. But part of our job is to manage those perceptions and the expectations that go around with them and help get as close to on the same page as possible. We hear all the time from internal project teams, well, that client just doesn't know what's going on. They're uneducated. They've never done this kind of a project before. It's not our fault. So I hear that all the time, and I understand where that comes from, of course, but also it is part of our job to educate them when they're new. It's part of our job to help them understand how long something takes, how things are, what the risks are going to be, what unforeseen circumstances might come up. So there's no gain in just letting them be uneducated and frustrated with us as we go through a new process with them. So I would challenge everybody to, when you're experiencing that, to think about how we can educate them and how can we be a really valuable resource. Because then if we help them through this and we change their whole perception on what's going on and they feel safe and like they can trust us through the whole project, that's going to make them want to come back next time. So that's just something we hear a lot that we like to bring up. And another thing that we are working on a lot is finding differentiators, because like I said, in professional services, that can be difficult. As you can see on this LinkedIn screenshot, people like to say, our experience is 3 times higher than the industry average. That says a lot to people on the outside about what it's like working with this company. And when I was doing proposals all the time, every single cover letter I wrote said that we're going to provide a successful on-time project under budget. First of all, that should be the goal anyways, right? No one is like, we probably won't give you a successful project. So the standard is like, you're going to get the project done. It'll be reasonably on time and reasonably near budget. And if you're not planning on doing those things, it's like very problematic versus impressive to a client. So we want to look for other things we can say that will stand out and hopefully catch people's attention. Things like we score the best on our surveys in terms of being responsive. People find us very helpful. They are a trusted advisor that we're able to lean on in difficult times. Knowing that other people are saying those things are going to catch people's eye and be a lot more interesting than we promised to do your project like we're supposed to. So stuff like that. I do connect with the marketing team about all this stuff regularly. So we have a library of quotes from a bunch of different kinds of clients and a different kind of geographies. So if you're interested in trying to spruce up a proposal, like let your marketing team member know, and they have a lot of resources that are available. These are some of the things, some of the actual quotes that we do have. We can put these in project approaches for similar projects. We can put them in cover letters. We can put them everywhere. Everything in the quote library that I do have I have explicit permission from clients to use. So we can also show people like where it's coming from. If it's a municipality in the Capital District of New York, we can find a similar client so that it's relatable, stuff like that. So just so everybody knows, this is out there, and hopefully people will use it. So the 4 main things that we've kind of taken away from our feedback program are that these 4 things, responsiveness, attitude, accountability, and helpfulness, are the most important things to our clients. We hear this all the time. And it's also the stuff we do the best at. So there's a good synergy there, which is kind of like that chart I showed in the beginning, like the branding and the employees and the client experience is all very synergistic. But all of these, it's really important to know your clients before you just charge in with any kind of plan, because client experience only works when it's personalized. Everybody's different. Everybody has different feelings, priorities, different bosses who want different stuffs out of them. So you have to really know what you're getting into. So we really encourage everyone to try to get to know their clients on a couple different levels in a couple different ways that can help provide a personalized client experience of high quality. We encourage people to ask about things, especially communication expectations. Probably 50% of the meetings I go to at least are like, we expected to hear from them more. We thought we'd have more meetings. We thought this, we thought that. So there's nothing wrong with asking people in the beginning or putting in a proposal about how much you plan to communicate with people and following up and asking if it's enough, or asking, do we need to have more frequent check-ins? A lot of times we'll be working on stuff and we know we're working on it, but they might just be out in the void, right? Like waiting to hear from us. So we want to try to manage that. And the best way really is to ask. It's also okay to ask people if they prefer to be text messaged, emailed, phone called. Everybody has different preferences. Do they accept phone calls after hours, stuff like that. Having a conversation about that and then following through can be incredibly helpful for a relationship going forward. And we do ask too, like I mentioned earlier, when project managers change, we get a lot of feedback right away about some subtle differences that you might not expect people to pay a lot of attention to. We hear things like, the last project manager used to hang out after the meeting a little bit, ask how the kids are doing, where's everyone going to college? And the new one just gets up and says thanks and runs out the door. So I feel like they don't care about me. That's probably not true. You probably got thrown on this project very last minute because somebody left or something like that. But kind of paying attention to the vibe and seeing what the expectations might be in sense of kind of the social aspect of a meeting or something can be really important as well. Because we don't want people to feel like we don't care about them. That's the main driver of why people leave vendors. So these 4 things, keeping all of that in mind, because you do have to kind of try to customize it and meet people where they are. The thing that matters the absolute most to our clients is responsiveness. This is also our highest scoring item. So I know that a lot of you are newer to project management, but keep on keeping on is what I say about the responsiveness. We try to encourage everyone to at least get back to somebody with a confirmation of receipt within 24 hours. I got your email, I'm working on it, I'm trying to figure it out, I'll get back to you soon. When things just hang out in the email inboxes with no response, clients tend to get anxious, of course. So we just ask that we do our best to keep people in the loop. Even if you don't have something to share, letting them know you're still working on it can go a long way in kind of easing a lot of that anxiety. You don't have to have everything resolved in order to communicate about it with people. But like I said, we get very great comments, very great scores on this. I think we do a great job here. So I just encourage everyone to keep that in mind. And the other thing people like about us a lot is our attitudes. We get a lot of feedback that people like to work with LaBella because of the people who work at LaBella. We don't get a ton of people saying that we build the sexiest buildings in town or we do these crazy, awesome, like wild projects, but everybody really likes working with us, which is really great. So we hear that we're approachable, we are not condescending, we're honest, people can trust us, and they love that about us. So we just like to tell everybody that because it can be important when you're having a really bad day and you have to answer the phone and it's like, oh, hi, what is up? I'm sorry, I haven't called you back and blah, blah, blah. And it's like very easy to get very frazzled, but sometimes it can be worth screening the call and calling them back after you've had a minute to take a deep breath. I've walked around many of the offices at LaBella. I hear people all the time, sorry, I'm just so slammed right now. I'm totally underwater. I can't get to this right now, blah, blah, blah. And like, that might be true. It probably is true, but it makes that client feel like their stuff is at the bottom of your huge pile and it's not important. So thinking about how we talk about this stuff and how we frame it to people is really important so that we can keep up this attitude that people love working with. So accountability is also something I like to mention because I know that we have projects that are all over the board, right? Sometimes we're the only consultant doing all the work. Sometimes we have a million sub-consultants. Sometimes we are a sub-consultant. We work with contractors, there's stakeholders everywhere and people involved all over the place. So not every time. So it's not like we are fully responsible for every single part of every single project, but we should be accountable for the overarching success of each project to the extent that we can be. If a contractor installs something wrong, the solution is not to be like, well, that's their problem, so they should fix it. Like, we want to be a trusted partner. How can we help our clients get to a solution? How can we support them? How can we help them reach their goals, even when it might not be our fault that something is going wrong? And when it is our fault that something is going wrong, it's really important to really try to find a great solution and try to over deliver a little bit on that resolution, because it can really restore a lot of people's opinions about working with our firm. I will share this example very quickly, and I know that it does not relate to the AEC industry, and I do not recommend anybody ever do this, but in some business to consumer companies where people sell toys or items or things, they actually design flaws in their delivery system because they've already designed very good solutions to those flaws. And people can actually be more loyal to your brand if you fix a mistake really, really well. So there are certain companies, again, I do not recommend this for us, but I'm just trying to emphasize the point that it works, that if you over deliver on a mistake resolution, it can really, it can be good for the relationship long-term, and they might end up more loyal to us at the end. So there are actually quite a few business to consumer companies that do that. And helpfulness. We get great feedback about our helpfulness, and there's a ton of data and metrics out there that the less effort we have to expend to work with somebody, the more we like working with them. Everybody's busy. Nobody wants to follow up 100 times to make sure everything is happening right. So the easier it is to work together, the higher loyalty level that there is. So that's something that we do have great things, and that is something that it can be helpful to remember as you're going through something. Providing extra documentation, maybe summarizing reports or standards together to help a client have an easier life is really great. We get a lot of comments that say something like, the LaBella team is so helpful that I was able to put my time on other things because I trusted them to keep going. And that is like one of the best feedbacks that we can possibly get, because wouldn't we all like a little more time in our day to do other stuff? So giving people more time in their day can be super, super helpful. And another thing that we like to do to try to improve our client experience is we have a program, if you'll call it, where we like to do gestures that say that we are paying attention to what's going on with our clients. And this can be business-wise or personal-wise, but if we're starting up a project that was really difficult to get going, if we get funding for something, if a project win awards, or if people on our project teams have significant life events, maybe they're getting married, maybe they got a baby, maybe they are going on a vacation they really want to go on or whatever. There's a lot that we can do to kind of recognize these moments and do something to celebrate them that will stand out in people's head, in what's called in the biz a moment of wow, which is like a little cheesy fun. But we do this all the time. When our K-12 districts win a bond vote, we might send cookies or an edible arrangement to say congratulations. When people win a 40 under 40 award or engineer of the year, we might send flowers, we might do this, we might do that. So we send a lot of stuff for people having life events. And one of the reasons you might have noticed we do the month of thanks in November is we love writing handwritten cards to clients. So while we campaign to do that in November to say thank you for a great year, we're looking forward to the future, we can write notes all the time. We can write thank you notes when we win proposals. We've done that quite a few times, and people are they're like, holy crap, cow, this is great. So even just a handwritten card can go a long, long way in kind of setting the tone for a new project or a new relationship. So if you have any of this kind of stuff going on and you're interested in doing something, please reach out to me. I have a lot of ideas and accessible ways to do this kind of stuff. I have it in my client experience budget, so it doesn't come out of a divisional or a project budget. And just let me know and we can figure out what the most appropriate situation is. Some clients have gifting rules and restrictions, some don't, and it's important to know things sometimes like food allergies and stuff with people. So we'll just work through it and see what the most appropriate kind of situation is for what you're experiencing. I like to share this really quickly too, because this kind of, I think, culminates quite a few of the topics that I've covered so far today. This is a guy I used to work with a long time ago, and his mother passed away, and somebody, like one of the vendors of a software that he uses at his business, sent him flowers to say, we're sorry your mother passed away. And it could have easily ended at that, but he took to social media and he made this whole post about how great this gesture was, and how he told everybody in his network that he uses this software. It's important to his practice. He's never met these people before, but yet they still did this great gesture because they care. And it was one of the busiest times of their year. And so he took to social media. He had social proof. He tags them in it. And it's all because they sent him flowers because of his mother passing away. So a lot of this stuff can be small, but it can make a very big difference. We're not trying to like schmooze and overgift and bribe or anything like that. But sometimes when you just notice and respond to an important moment in someone's life, it makes them feel like a human relationship more than a business relationship. So that's kind of what we're going for here. So I like to kind of also sort of go over to remind everybody what I do is I do these in-person feedback meetings. I can do surveys. I do gesture coordination. If your team is shifting around, if somebody leaves who has a lot of client contacts and you want some help organizing how we might approach the switchover, I'm happy to do that. And if you are kind of in charge of or really involved in a certain market or geography or service and you want to talk about feedback we've gotten in that arena, I'm happy to do that as well. I really like to stress that I do not focus on business development. I don't focus on getting new clients because my whole point here is that I think we need to focus a little bit more on our current clients. Obviously, we need both, but the point of me is more for the current existing client base. I don't act as a client manager. I kind of just am a medium in between clients and project teams. And I don't come up with plans to single-handedly fix any issues that we come through our feedback program. So I just kind of work as a conduit to help see what we can do together as a team. So we just ask that everybody, as you're moving through your project management journey, we ask everybody to embody the core values of LaBella because they're important to us, they're important to our clients. And we just ask that you do check in regularly with your clients, ask how things are going, see what they say. If they say something interesting, let me know and we might need to follow up on it. It can be helpful to do that separate from a project meeting. If you're having like a 3-hour long, huge meeting about toilet hardware or something like that. And at the end you say, how's it going? People are going to be like, oh, I don't know. But a separate phone call, just wanted to see how things are going. Is there anything we need to talk about? Can really alert us to a whole lot of different stuff. And we love writing our handwritten cards. So if you ever want to have a stash of those, let me know and I'm happy to provide them. So just here's a quick summary. That's pretty much all I have today. So I'm happy to take any questions or anything like that.
Thanks, Brittany. That was great.
Okay.
Hi, Brittany. It's Chris.
Hi.
I'm just curious, do you have a public folder that can be shared on the client quotes or your feedback from other clients that can be shared so that if we are going after a client and maybe, hey, let's know, maybe something that you've already interviewed sort of with and can get feedback off of that to help us for future project work?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I do have that on the marketing drive. So the marketing team does have access to it, but I can look into putting it somewhere a little bit more public, maybe on the internet somewhere or something. So
I wasn't sure if we needed to reach out directly to you or if it could be accessed publicly, with internal.
yeah, it's definitely out there. So, and I can follow up on where I do end up putting it. But until then, you can always reach out to me or anybody on the marketing team and they should be able to help you.
Okay, thank you.
There must be more questions.
There doesn't have to be.
Did everybody know? First of all, I'm going to ask a question to facilitate here. So did everybody know that we had this role at LaBella, that Brittany does this? Some of you are nodding your head. More of you are nodding your head.
Yeah. Hey, Kat, it's Mike. Yes. And certainly around the holidays, I got some incredible feedback from some people on some of the wreaths and, little things like that a lot of people don't do. We kind of go out of our way to doing it. It's certainly bears fruit. There's no question. So I think it's great. And Brittany, I think you did a great job today.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, a couple of follow-up thoughts. if nobody has other additional questions, but to highlight some of the things that Brittany said, one of which was kind of the underlying basis of this. And one of the key things that we need to keep in mind as project managers is knowing your client. It's very easy to get caught up in the technical aspects of project management, managing the budget, managing the scope, whatnot. But understanding your client and really knowing who your client is and what makes them tick, how they like to communicate, what are the things I have going on in their life, is really important. And we'll talk a little bit more about this in some later sessions. But when it comes to our clients, managing the client relationship is key to having a continuing, ongoing, positive relationship with them. And that is one of the ways actually that we are mitigating risk as project managers. Because if something goes wrong on a project, and that's life, things happen. One of the key ways that we're able to mitigate the risk that can come from that occurrence is by having a good established relationship with our client. We're all people. If we're working with somebody that we really like, that has taken knowledge, that knows, and they try to be helpful, and then we feel like they're trustworthy. If something bad happens, they're going to give us the benefit of a doubt. So I cannot overemphasize how important it is to have a good knowledge of your client. And, I sent somebody as a baby, I send baby gifts, I send flowers. It's something that does make you stand out, and, just confirming to them that you do care about them as people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and kind of in line with the accountability thing too, when you're mitigating risk, I think when doctors apologize to patients after there's a problem with their care, if they say that they're sorry, there's like a 65% less chance that they'll get sued. So it can be like these really little things and how things are handled that really make a huge impact on the end result. So very important.
Yeah, I did. Somebody made a comment that they knew that this role existed, but there was a separate client experience budget. So that, that's a good point. So if there are flowers that need to be sent or a baby gift or whatnot, then, that's not something that would be coming out of division budgets, which is sometimes the concern. So,
right. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Any other thoughts? Does anybody have any example of, besides the reads, of something that you did for a client or that you heard another project manager did for a client that really made a difference to them and helped establish a relationship?
I will say just one more thing, which is not technically related to your question, Kat, but made it pop into my head anyways. We know that the project managers at LaBella have a really good sense of what's going on. 85% of the time when I have an interview with a client, I'll talk to the project team ahead of time and the meeting goes exactly how I expect it to, which is good. That means the project managers are communicating, they're in touch, and they know what's going on. But then every once in a while, there is just an absolute surprise during one of these meetings. And that's the whole point of them, basically, is because we've had like at least 2 instances where we've been able to turn around a client who was ready to leave us that we had no idea was even upset. So just every once in a while, you get these surprises because they might not feel comfortable talking to the person they have to talk to every day about it. They might have just never been asked specifically about it, something like that. But we've had 2 where I went down thinking it was going to be like super easy, nice, fun little morning. And I'm like, whoa, this is pretty serious. So it doesn't happen often, which is a great reflection on our current status. But even if you can save 1 or 2 relationships a year, it's making a big difference for our firm and our profitability and our reputation. So, and like I said, a lot of times people love being asked about it. And sometimes when they're mad, just venting for a little while also helps them feel better. So there's all these weird kind of things about these meetings that are not so obvious that still can make a big difference, even if you think everything is fine. So
I think you shared an experience in a previous training, Brittany, where you had that kind of conversation with the client and they were upset and they just wanted to vent. And then, but
Yep.
once they vented, they were like, actually, everything's fine. It's
Yep.
just that we needed a vent.
She vented for almost 2 hours and then sent me an email and she was like, I'm sorry, I really think I overreacted, like blah, blah, blah. But we did still address like the core core things that she was frustrated with, we did make sure to address them, but she also just wanted to talk about it. And some people are just like that. So that can go a long way in just making them feel like LaBella as a whole is there for them, basically. So yeah, that was not a surprise. Technically, I knew what that was going to be like going into it. So yeah, so just let me know if you're ever curious about anything, and we can figure out what we want to do about it. So,
Okay.
Cool.
One more minute.
All set, Kat?
Just need to stop chewing.
Okay.
Okay, looks like people are back. So we will get started again. Let's see. Heather, do you want to hit the record button?
We are
So-
recording.
Okay, very good. So everybody, thanks for coming back. We are going to move now and have a presentation on proposals and opportunities by Chris LaBella, who is in our marketing group. She's very knowledgeable, and I think that much like the presentation from Brittany, you'll learn some exciting new stuff from this one too. So Chris, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Kat. Hello, everybody. I am the Senior Marketing Coordinator in the Architecture Division here in the Rochester office, and I have been with LaBella for almost 8 years and in the AE industry for over 15 years. So I'm going to talk a little bit about opportunities, our BD and opportunities, the go, no-go process, and then proposal preparation. So bear with me, but if you do have questions along the way, please feel free to enter them into the chat or stop me if you need me to go over something. There we go. So first, we're going to talk about the opportunity process as a whole. The initial opportunity process usually starts with some sort of business development effort, and that could be attending a trade show, that could be just meeting somebody on the street and finding out about something. There's really a lot of different ways that BD can happen. And we use Deltek as our tracking tool, specifically the CRM module within Deltek to do that. And I'm going to go over that in a couple minutes. Another way that you might find out about opportunities is actually through the public notice, or if a client actually emails you directly an RFP or proposal that they'd like you to submit on. Sometimes we get alerts from the contract reporter. We use another service called GovWin, or you are emailed directly from those clients or colleagues. The request for proposal or qualifications, and if those include full qualifications, which usually includes resumes, project sheets, a specific approach, sometimes a fee or not. Those are usually marketing led. And then there's also sort of just that general letter proposal that a lot of you would probably be doing that are much simplified and don't usually include all of that information, and you would be able to do those on your own. As part of the opportunity process, we always look for, is there a conflict of interest? Typically, we do have a list on the intranet, which I can show you, that has a list of the municipalities that we aren't able to do work with, additional work with. We currently have arrangements with them on our engineering side. And so it precludes us from doing some other additional work. And so there's some restrictions there, but the checklist on the intranet would tell you who you need to contact and reach out to if there is a potential conflict of interest. And then the go, no-go process. This is really sort of that initial step in the whole opportunity process. If you're going to actually put a proposal together or not, consider the division, department goals, the market, the location. Do we already have a relationship with this client? And what kind of proposal effort will it take to get the job done to send them the proposal? If needed, we usually would have a go, no-go meeting with the department leads, the PMs, any internal technical staff, and really determine a full-fledged go, no-go process. Here's just sort of a brief flow chart of how the process would usually work. There's usually 2 starting points, and then you kind of can weave your way through the process. And we're going to kind of talk about each step now as we move forward. So BD and opportunities. Hopefully you all are familiar with Deltek because you do have to do your timesheet each week. And so this is typically the screen when you log in. It may look different to you. My dashboard has many things on it. But when you come in, on the left-hand side here are our info centers. And this is where all the CRM info is tracked. This is where clients, contacts, opportunities, employees, and project information lives. And then obviously your time and expense sheet is down here. CRM is that customer relationship management, and really everything is in one central place, which is what we want. We don't want there to be a million spreadsheets on people's desktops or on their H drive where no one can access it. We really need a centralized hub where we can store all this information. So that's what CRM really stands for, is bringing that all together. So we do have CRM Central on our intranet page, and there you will find the training video, the CRM manual. We have some deep dives, and we also have a help button. So I will encourage you, if you have not had formal CRM training with myself or any of the other marketing staff, please make sure that you take a few minutes to watch the video. It is a little over an hour long, but if you haven't done that video, it is very helpful and it will help you going forward. If you have had training and it's been a while now and you haven't really used CRM since that training, we will be offering refresher classes. There is actually one going to be coming up in March through LaBella University, so be on the lookout for that and you can sign up for that. But then also, if there's just a topic that you need to refresh yourself on, we do have timestamps on the video list. So if you just need to know about opportunities, you can go right to that timestamp and just watch that section of the video. And then also the manual is there to help as well. But any of the marketing staff can also assist you if you have any questions. So what is a BD activity? So really that's, attending an event, if we're sponsoring an event, making emails, phone calls, anything that you're gathering business development intelligence. And that could be, something about a future project. Maybe you're working with a current client and you go to a meeting and they're like, hey, I just bought a piece of property and I'm thinking about building a new building. Can you guys help me with that? And we'd be like, of course we can. And so any of that type of thing is considered a BD activity. If you're at a trade show and somebody comes up to you and asks about our services, that could lead to something down the line. Political contributions. We have Susan Wiley at the firm, who's our government and affairs person, and she handles a lot of those political contributions and is out in the community making those things. So working with her is always important as well. But anything that you can think that another employee would need to know, we want to document that as a business development activity. And we ask that you do that in Deltek, in CRM, and log an activity. And to do that, there's really several different ways in CRM. And in the video, I go through a couple of different ones, but this is really the easiest way to do it. If you were to go to the employee info center, a lot of times, many of you, if you click on that button, it'll come up with your own personal record. If it doesn't though, go over here to the right and just type in your last name and hit enter, and then it should pop up with your record. You'll go over to the CRM info tab. And then on that tab, there is a grid that says activities. Over here on the right, you're going to hit the insert button. And then this little pop-up box will appear where then you will enter in all of the information from what you just gathered. So the subject could be, met with so-and-so at trade show. And then the type would be a meeting. And then the client, if it's already existing, you can link to that client record. If it's not existing, we can create that and add that in there. But then you would fill in as much information as you could. The activity owner will pop up automatically because you're on your own record. In this case, it's Andrea Kelly's, but you put the start time, the end time, and then there's a notes section here. If you click on the edit button, it'll bring up a text editor box and you can type directly into that box, or say you had an email or some other written communications that you wanted to copy and paste from, you could copy right out of that document and paste it right into that box. And then when you hit OK, it'll show up on your record. And if you've linked it to any clients or opportunities or projects, it will also show up in those records as well later on. So that's always a good tool for you. The go, no go process. So we have not really had a formal go, no go process here at LaBella for quite some time. Some divisions have their own way of doing things and others don't use the go, no go process in a formal manner. But it really is the first step in good quality project management and making sure that we're going after good opportunities. And in good in this instance, you know, that is usually subjective, but we're looking for good clients, good price, work we do well or that we want to further develop, and that there are no conflicts of interest. Two basic pieces to an effective go, no go opportunity process is, you know, the analysis of whether the opportunity seems pertinent, the scoring system, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. And then communication amongst all the potentially involved technical disciplines and those with geographic and or client specific information. You know, often we meet as a team to talk through the RFP and we'll make a decision based on the overall discussion and intelligence we've gathered. I may look at an opportunity and say, oh, that, you know, I'm not sure if that really fits with us. But then if I'm meeting with a project manager or a studio market leader and they're like, oh, well, I've been talking to so-and-so and we've been working on this for a while now, that's good for me to know. And so it changes the whole direction of the go, no go process once you have all that intelligence. So we do now have a go, no go process in Deltek and it's live. There is a tab in there, but we also have a spreadsheet that you can use, which is available on the intranet. So I would encourage you to take a look at this spreadsheet. There are only 7 questions. We really narrowed in and honed in on some things. Kat helped out with that with us. And there are 3 choices for your decision criteria, if it's negative, neutral, or positive. And then you would score each of the questions 1 through 3, and then tally up your score. It'll do it automatically for you in Excel and also in Deltek. And then if your rating is above a 2, if the score turns out to be 2 or greater, that means that yes, this is a viable proposal and that we should go after it. If it's below 2, then it's kind of questionable and there may be a reason that we should still go after it, but those should really be vetted out and talked with either your division director or someone more senior who can then say, you know, okay, we're willing to take the risk to do this proposal.
Chris, we have a question in the chat.
Sure.
Catherine wants to know, what is create follow-up activity button when adding an activity? Is it an alert through Deltek?
So it is an alert through Deltek. It may not work 100% at the moment because it's not tied into our Outlook calendars or email system. In the next version of Deltek, which is Vantage Point, there is more Outlook integration and that button should work in the future. But you could set the follow-up. It will, if you have an alert on your dashboard, it will alert you, but it won't do it through your email. So hopefully that helps. So why is the go, no go important? We want to be selective on what we pursue as a company. You know, is it in our wheelhouse? Who will be the competition? Does it align with our goals and objectives? And will it be profitable? It's important to identify if we don't have the capacity, time, or the odds of winning. And then on average, as Brittany mentioned, it does cost $10,000 to put a marketing-led proposal together. And that includes my time, the project manager's time, the technical lead's time, you know, the printing, the binding, the delivery. There's a lot of things that go into the whole proposal process. So we want to be very cognizant of people's times. So how do we create an opportunity and start moving forward once we've decided that we are a go with a proposal? So typically, and some of you may have already heard this through the grapevine, but you need a proposal number or a P number to be able to charge your time to that. So we can track how much time is being spent on these proposals. So to do that, you're going to go to Deltec and you're going to go to the info center for opportunities. And then you're going to search to see if it's already been entered. If not, you're going to select new and then enter the pursuit information. The stage must be proposal to generate that P number. And then you're going to click save. And once you do that, an email will be generated and sent to accounting. They will set it up and then you'll get the P number back under, which is actually a promotional project number. So I'm going to jump out of PowerPoint here and I'm going to go to Deltec so I can show you what I mean. So you can see it in action. So over here in the info center, so say you have your proposal and you need to get your P number. A lot of times, if it is a full marketing led proposal, I will tell you your marketing person will probably get that P number for you. But if you're doing a letter proposal or something on your own, or maybe your marketing person isn't available and you really need to get that P number, you can do it yourself. So you won't always have to do this, but just so that you know how to do it is good information. So you'll go to opportunities, and actually probably one is going to pop up because I already brought one up for you to see. It's going to take a second here to populate. Sorry, it's being slow today. There we go. Okay, so in this instance, I had an RFP for the Rochester Genesee Transportation Authority for a facility assessment for hydrogen buses. Very, very thrilling. The LaBella organization here was Rochester. The primary client was the Rochester Genesee Regional Transit Authority. We had a contact. You know, you're going to list in your principal, who the project manager is, your proposal coordinator, whether that's your marketing person, or again, if it's a letter proposal, you could list yourself here because you're doing the proposal. The due date. Over here for stage, this is where it's really important that you select that proposal stage if you need to get the P number. In this instance, I already have the P number and it's actually attached to this record here. But if I was just setting this up as a new one, I would want to make sure that stage is set to proposal. We do also have a new stage here for the go, no go. So if you are just entering the opportunity to run the go, no go process and see if it is able to be pursued, you can set the stage to go, no go. And then the third tab over is our go, no go form, where you can then fill out all of the go, no go information, which is the same as what on that spreadsheet that I showed you that's on the intranet. You would select from the drop downs, enter your value over here on the right once you've chosen 1 through 3. And then once you hit save, that will actually automatically sum the value and give you your final rating. So in this case, if I had done the go, no go on this, we would have gotten a final rating of 2.42. And then I would have said, oh, okay, this is a good one, I can go. So going back to the general tab, once I've determined that, I can then switch this to the proposal stage. And then when I hit save, it'll send that email to accounting and I can get my proposal number for this. The proposal type, there are 3 types. As I mentioned, you're going to have your letter proposal, your full proposal with quals, and full proposal with quals and fee. It depends on the client and the proposal, but there are those 3 different types available. The source is where the proposal is coming from. If it's a public notice, if you received an email directly from the client, we do have RFP via mail or email. As I mentioned, we look at GovWin or BidNet. You could also get it from a teaming partner or an existing client. So there's a lot of different choices in here for you to choose from where we get the RFPs. And then the client market would always reflect back to, you know, who are we giving the proposal to? So in this case, it's the Rochester Genesee Transportation Authority and their state agency or MPO. So that's the market for them. The primary project type is what are we doing for them initially, and this was for a study, so our primary project type was a study, but you could add subtypes down here. You know, if we were doing multiple things within one proposal, you could certainly add other project types. The date open is automatic, and then the date closed would only populate once it's done. In this case, we did happen to lose this proposal, so unfortunately, it is closed. But we did enter the start date, the estimated completion date. Our responsibility was the prime on this, but if you were a consultant or if it was a joint venture, you could certainly choose from those. And then if we happen to know what our fee is going to be on this, you can add the revenue and then our potential profitability score here. There's many choices here as well. So once you have all that filled out, we then ask that you fill out the location tab. And this will help us to run some reports and generate information on where things are happening and where we're winning and losing. So in this particular instance, we ask that you fill out the city, the state, the county. And it's very important that you choose this from the dropdown. These are already pre-filled in, so make sure that you're choosing them from the dropdown. If it happens to be a term contract or something that's not in one region or one county specific, we do have a statewide option that you can choose as well. Or if it's in like 3 counties, you can choose the primary county. You can't select all of them, obviously.
Chris, I just want to interject for just one moment because
Sure.
we have noticed you all are in this training because you're somewhere on your PM path, and we have noticed that when some people are entering in, are filling out this field, they're just typing in the county. It will accept a write-in, which is a challenge. We're trying to get Deltec to not allow that, but if you do that, if you just type in the county, when we then do a search later, or you want to do a search to find out how many jobs you've done in Monroe, unless you've selected Monroe, New York with the state after it, it won't be pulling all the data. So just a note, like if you're typing in and you think it doesn't do the autofill, it's a Deltec limitation. So just please make sure that when you're going in, you're actually picking one and it's got the state after it. Otherwise, the data isn't as accessible and won't help with future marketing efforts.
Yes, thanks, Kat. Yeah, we have a ticket in with Deltec. Unfortunately, this field has a little glitch in it. So we're hoping for a fix, but right now our only option is to just make sure that we're using the drop-down menu. And then the LaBella region, if you click on any of these little question marks here, these are actually little help guides. So if you clicked on that, although one over here, it does say, please select the corresponding LaBella office region for where the project is located, not necessarily the same as where the work will be managed from. So, and we do have some reference material on the internet about our regions and all those things. So if you need help figuring that out, they're on the intranet, but it really should be from the location of the project, not necessarily where the project manager might be sitting or where the staff that's doing the work would be sitting. So once you have all that filled out and you hit save, as I mentioned, that's when you get that P number. So just to show you if I had done my search and my opportunity wasn't already existing and I just wanted to create a new opportunity, I'm going to just go to this new button here and you're going to say new opportunity. I don't want to save my changes. And this is what it'll look like when you first come into Deltec. Everything will be blank and you'll have these yellow highlighted fields, and those are all of the required fields that you must fill in. And you'll notice on the location tab, we also have those highlighted as well. So when you're starting your new opportunity, this will what it'll look like. You'd fill it in like I just showed you, and then always just make sure your stage is set to proposal to get that P number. Anybody have any questions on opportunities before we move on? Okay, great. So this is the example. It's in the PowerPoint here just so that later on you can have it. But again, those yellow highlighted fields are the mandatory fields, and all the other fields are great if you can fill them in, if you have the information. If not, that's okay. Here's what a sample RFP would normally look like. Oh, I should go back to sorry, it was not in presenter mode. This is what an RFP would typically look like. You know, it has various information, usually on the scope. Sometimes they give you the value of the project. It'll tell you when the due date is. all sorts of things. But that's what we're going to use to fill in that information in Deltek. Please make sure though, when you're entering the proposal name, that it should not just be the location or the client name. It should really give an indication of what we are going to be doing. So, you know, in my example, you know, I had RGRTA hydrogen bus facility study. So that's like the entire name. You wouldn't just put RGRTA study, because down the road, if we're doing a search, you're not going to know, well, what was that study or what we're doing. And the LaBella organization is usually the division within LaBella that is leading the project and should be the same as the division of the project manager. The project type, if there is something missing in the dropdown that you would like added, you can use the help button on the intranet to alert us, and we can certainly get those added. We have over 183, I think, right now, project types available, but sometimes, you know, you just can't find what you're looking for, which is fine. So please let us know and we'd be happy to add that for you. But it is a required field though, so you do have to pick something. So make sure you kind of pick the best selection or some choice, and then we can go back later once it's been added and certainly update that for you.
Chris, we've got a couple of questions when you have a moment.
Oh, sure. Sorry, I can't see the chat. Oh, it's up here. That's why.
The first one is from Catherine, and it says, when an opportunity is closed, what happens to the proposal number?
So the promotional project number is still active until accounting actually closes the promotional project number out. But that just means the record will become inactive. And so like if we're doing an open proposal search, like it won't show up in those reports. But the actual proposal number will remain active until accounting closes that, which at some point usually do that.
Right, and if it does also, if it becomes a project and we got it, it becomes linked to the project. That P number stays in the system.
Correct. Yeah, they will create the project from that promotional project number, and then they're linked forever.
The second question is from Zachary Dyer. What should be put in for principal information on the proposal opportunity?
So the principal field, that's a great question. There's some debate on what that means for different people, but typically, in my case, usually it would be either your supervisor or the division director, or it could also be the studio manager. But typically someone in the firm that has signing power, who would be the one signing your contract, is usually a good person to put in that principal role. Because as you know, anyone in LaBella that's a vice president or higher are the people that can sign contracts. So that's usually who would be in that principal field.
I just put in the chat the link to the document on the intranet that has who are the folks within the company who have signatory authority for contracts and proposals.
Oh, great. Thanks.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Kat. Hold on 1 minute, Chris. Sue, can you clarify, and this is really for my own education, it may help the other project managers. Is it the project manager's responsibility to carry over any budget information from the proposal number to the project number?
If some of the
successful.
time that was billed against the proposal is going to then be charged to the project.
Correct.
That should be noted in the PIF email when the PIF is attached, and then accounting will know that and then can coordinate with the project manager.
Okay, thank you.
So yes, it lives with the PM. Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions in the chat there, Heather?
Whoops, I made a boo-boo. I didn't put the link in the right. Sorry, I had 2 chats open.
I was going to say something to you, Kat, anyway.
It's all right. See if I can figure out how to do this to everyone now.
All right, so while Kat's doing that, so yes, you can go back though to your opportunity at any time and you can modify things, which is great. And we do ask that you update the stage along the way as well. So if you've sent the proposal in and now, we got shortlisted and you're going to an interview, we have stages for that. If we are awarded, obviously you would change that to awarded as well. Or unfortunately, if we lose, then you would change it to lost, and we would track the proposal throughout the whole process. So here's the finished example, as I showed you. So the proposal name, the organization, and then all the details filled in. So this is just for your reference later on, so you have something to look at. And then again, here's that sample of the completed go, no-go form in Deltec. So you would certainly, be able to select your choices from the dropdown, add the values over here on the right, and then you'd get your sum and rating once you hit save. So why do we need to input so much information? And I know a lot of you are busy and already have a lot going on, but really we need this information for our reports. We do run a weekly CRM opportunities report, and we email that to division directors and marketing staff so that they know what opportunities are being pursued within the company. And it's really just for general knowledge, tracking, billing. And really, in the end, it is more efficient. This information does get pulled into the project once it's set up, as we mentioned. You'll fill out your PIF, which is the project initiation form. And if you reference your P number on that form, accounting will go back to the P number and use that to create your project from. And then, so all that information that you've already entered doesn't have to be entered again, which is great. So once you have your RFP and you have your P number, you're like, well, what do I do now? Well, we really need you to set up a folder on the P drive so that we can store all this information. And everyone has access to set up those folders on the P drive. We do set them up by client. So whoever you're submitting the proposal to is the folder that you would go to set it up. So like in my example for our GRTA, we have a folder on the P drive for our GRTA. I would go there. I would create a folder with the P number I was given and the RFP name. And then I would create subfolders within that folder, one for the RFP. And then typically the marketing staff will then generate folders for the different proposal pieces and save information in there in an organized manner. So that's really important just to make sure that, so if something happens and somebody else needs to jump in there to do something, they have the ability to find the information that they're looking for. So the actual proposal preparation. So usually the first step, once we've made the go decision and we're ready to start the proposal, is to really hold a kickoff meeting. And this should be done as soon as possible, because a lot of times, unfortunately, clients these days aren't giving us a whole lot of time to put these proposals together. And there is quite a bit of effort that's needed to do that. And so the sooner we have the kickoff meeting, the sooner we can get stuff going and prepared for it, and also leaving time for that QA/QC that we want at the end. So having that meeting, within a few days of the RFP coming out is usually ideal. But obviously we know it's sometimes hard getting a group of people together, so it might take a few more days, but really have those as soon as you can. For the team structure, there's really a few different options for this. If it's multidisciplinary, the PM would usually collect the scope, schedules, costs from each technical lead. And then for the responses to the RFPs, marketing is the lead for formatting, the compilation, the production, and the delivery. And the technical lead typically would provide those scopes, schedules, hours, and costs. If it's just one technical discipline, like let's say it's just an architecture proposal, we don't have any MEP or anything else on it, it would just be done by the technical lead and the PM preparing the proposal. And then if you haven't had this opportunity yet, but a lot of our RFPs do have M&W BE requirements, DBE requirements, and SDVOB requirements, which are our minority business enterprise, women business enterprise, disadvantaged business enterprise, and then small disadvantaged veteran-owned businesses. So if it really depends on the funding source for the project as to if these requirements are needed. A lot of our K-12 projects, we don't have those requirements, but then if it's a state funded project or a federally funded project, you might have those requirements. And a lot of times it's like a 15% or 6% for the SCVOB, and we have to bring on sub-consultants. And so our team then is a lot larger and gets a little more complicated. So through the scoping process and site visit, one of the first things is make sure that you fully read and understand the RFP. The client will give you as much information as they can, usually within that document. So make sure that you are reading it and know what they're asking for. And then if you can, or if they don't already have something scheduled, a lot of times there may be a formal site visit that you have to go to or a pre-proposal meeting. But if not, make sure that you take some time to meet and talk with the client if you're able to. And then if they're not doing a site visit or you can't get to the site, at least submit some questions if you are unsure of some things. Make sure that we're understanding their project vision. And then what does the project have to achieve for it to be successful? All those critical success factors. And then how does the client want to handle change? And there is more than one approach to this. And involving those technical leads and scoping is really important. And if there are sub-consultants, they are key in involving them as well.
Chris, we've got a few more questions. You're very popular.
Boy. Go for it.
The first one is, what about clients that need to be saved on secure drive? So this is from Catherine. So Catherine, I assume you mean proposals?
That is a great question. We do have some clients who we have some confidential information, or we do have special requirements that we've signed with them that are on special drives. Those are more of a case-by-case basis. I personally don't typically work with those clients. It usually comes from other divisions. So I am not the best person to answer that, but I know that IT can set you up with access to that drive and make sure that you have the correct resources to complete that.
Yeah, Chris, if I could just jump in real quick.
Sure.
Yeah, for instance, for Avangrid, we have an AVA drive that is secure drive. Those proposals are supposed to be saved in that secure drive versus the P or other marketing drives. Similar, Catherine, I know you have some other clients that are similar to Avangrid, or either they're OpCos or similar to Avangrid. Those proposals should also go with this in the secure drive versus the kind of the general marketing drive.
Thank you both. And then the second question was, if you're automatically given a project, do you still need a proposal number? So this is from Chris. So Chris, you're saying if you're being asked to work on prepare a new proposal for an existing project, can you clarify your question a little bit?
So yeah, say we're already working with a client on a project and they're like, all right, well, we have this other work that we like what you did here. Can you look into this? Just send me a quote. It's all like through email. Like, okay, yeah, it's approved. Go for it. Do we still need to have a proposal number in order to get a project number? Or I don't think through Deltek you can just do a project number, right?
Yeah, so if it's going to be like added on services to an existing project,
No, it would be a new project. Just
if it's going to be a new project and you're doing like an actual proposal, or even if it's just a quick email and stuff, we do ask that you create a proposal number for that. We do have a threshold though, because I know like for some of the survey folks, like they're doing proposals constantly. So as long as it's less than $10,000, we've kind of said, no, you don't need to pull a proposal number. But if it's greater than $10,000, we ask that you pull that proposal number.
I'd also add that if it's like a something new and new and exciting. I don't know quite how to say it, but like I had a land development project. We did a lot of land development work for them, but then a different part of their business wanted us to do something else, which was not a land development project. And so I would still want to put in an opportunity in my mind, like even if it's below the 10 grand, if it's something significantly different than what I've been doing before, just to make sure I've had the communications and it's gone through the system, and there's nothing crazy that's going on, especially if it's not something that we've done for that client before, and or if it is of a significant amount of dollar value, or if it is especially risky work. So if it is a job where company would have taken on a lot of risk, like some types of design, some types of assessments, those are ones where you want to think twice before you don't put an opportunity into the system for it.
Yeah.
Good question.
Great. All right. So projects with field work. Obviously, safety starts at the project scoping as well, not just when we're out doing the actual work. So we want to make sure that we are aware of what the typical hazards and PPE requirements are for this type of project. Are there atypical project elements requiring additional safety measures? Include time and cost for items such as halves or tailgate meetings. And then some degree of client education on safety may be needed because not all clients know that that is a part of the process. For the scope, usually you would include a project understanding section. And in here, we would attach reference documents. It could be maps, graphics, photos that maybe you took during the pre-proposal meeting or the site visit. And really want to make sure that you document all known unknowns, right? Because it's really, if we have any assumptions or exclusions, we want to make sure that those are documented. Tight scopes, assumptions, client owner responsibilities. Usually this would be, we try to limit the scope creep, which is the biggest cause of budget overages. And then it also provides justification for additional services later on. So we can say, well, we told you that you might need this, and we can go back and tell them, well, now you need this. And then consider additional services tasks. And if that's how your client wants to manage change, there's a lot of different ways that different clients want to handle some of those. So just be aware of that. And then those scopes and assumptions from the technical leads and subs as well. And then assumptions are critical if there are any uncertainty. Examples, the number of meetings, the number of days, hours. Sometimes this comes up a lot if we're doing any construction administration type services for clients where, we might not know how many days a week we need to be out there or how many hours a day. And so that's typically a question we would ask, but if we don't have an answer, then we would want to make it some sort of assumption like, well, we will be there 2 days a week, for 8 hours a day or something like that. And then for projects with field work, as we mentioned, including the scope for safety and equipment is also important.
So just to piggyback on what Chris just said, the proposal. So as project managers, you're managing the client, you're managing the team, you're managing the scope, the schedule, the cost, and the risk. And starting off with the proposal that actually has all the understandings documented in that, including the assumptions for the basis of design, number of days in the field, it is super critical because I will tell you that as soon as you get the job, something is going to change. And unless all the things that could potentially change within reason, of course, are delineated to the extent that we can when we're putting out the proposal, you will not believe some of the things that clients have asked us to do as an extra. And if we had not said, oh, well, we were clear on our scope, we would be on the hook. The quick example is we had one project for a local wastewater entity at one point. Our proposal just said that we would respond to comments. We did not know that the person who would be doing the review in the that project was incredibly detail oriented, is a polite way to put it. Okay. There was something like 7 rounds of comments. We lost our shirts. It was not good. We had to manage. We did our best to manage the expectations from the client, but our proposal basically said, we'll respond to comments. And so it was very open-ended. And even though it wasn't reasonable to assume that we would spend, 300 hours on responding to comments, we were kind of stuck. So just there's a reason why, Chris is spending a lot of time on the proposal process because it is really important. That sets the stage for the whole rest of the project. So I'll get off my soapbox now.
Thanks, Kat. So sometimes in the proposal, they'll ask that we provide them with a schedule If you are asked to, we ask that it's done in a table or text format, making sure that it's, easy for them to read and understand. And then making sure that the technical leads and subs also have bought into the schedule. Because if we're saying that they're going to do a particular phase or their particular service within a certain amount of time, we want to make sure that they can live up to that expectation. And then also consider inclusion of language regarding how the schedule may be changed based on provision of documents or regulators, or if there is a time restriction on the proposal. And then budgeting and billing. If they're asking for a cost within the proposal, make sure that you're using a budget spreadsheet to calculate those costs and get buy-in from the team. Lump sum only for well-defined scopes, and there's no uncertainty. Otherwise, we should be using time and materials. Include project management time, more than one approach to this, and not every division does it the same, but certainly want to make sure that you take that into account. Include markup, usually 10 to 15% for subs, and the percentage may be client directed or project specific. Again, that might be something that you want to talk with your division director or other project managers within your division to see how that they're doing it. And then include costs for safety, field equipment, vehicle use or mileage, and then other reimbursables such as printing, especially if we're doing bid sets or something, those can get very costly. So make sure that we have that accounted for.
Does anybody have any questions on, I'm sorry, Chris.
Sure. No, go ahead.
Because this came up in another session on how to calculate what project management time should be. Does anybody want to offer a guess as to how one calculates that? What the baseline is? Oh, come on. There must be one brave soul.
Got no takers, Kat.
No takers. I'm going to call on some takers.
Kat, is it some percentage of the total project fee?
Craig, gold star for Craig. Yeah. So generally speaking, depending on the size and the number of technical disciplines you have on the project and the overall fee, generally speaking, 10% is fairly a safe number to assume for the PM for project management. And this is something that's really challenging sometimes if it is a single discipline task. And if you're working just within your discipline and you are the PM and you're also the technical lead, you have to learn how to take off your technical lead hat, put that down to the side, put your PM hat on and say, I'm project managing. It isn't just it is a separate skill set, which is what you're learning all about, through this training process. But generally speaking, 10%, if it's a smaller project, it'll likely be less. I've had really big, multi-million-dollar projects where it was 15 to 20% because it was just a huge project and it was just proportionally a lot more and there were a lot of different disciplines and subs involved. So if you ever need guidance on that, let me know. It says more than one approach because sometimes the clients do not want to see it as a separate line item. And so it does kind of get rolled into the individual phases. But thanks for being brave, Craig.
Actually, Catherine and Mike also put some information in the chat. So Catherine said a percentage of fee and Mike guessed 5%. So he was close with that, but usually a little bit more. So
Yep.
If it's time and material that we're using as the fee type, would we still show it as project management time for that? Like we would bill our hours. Our hours wouldn't be incorporated into like somebody else's hourly rate. We wouldn't jack somebody else's hourly rate.
I think maybe we could talk about that offline. It sounds like you maybe are thinking of a specific circumstance, but generally speaking, if you are managing a project with somebody, your time should go on the project. I have seen sometimes when a particular client was extremely fussy about whose time they saw on a project, and there are ways back of house, Catherine, back of house accounting to kind of manipulate things in Deltex to make sure that we're getting paid for our effort. But really, you're working on a project, your time goes on the project. What we don't want to have happen is have anybody feel as if project management is just like this one more thing and it doesn't get captured. It is an individual technical discipline, pretty much like all skill set all on its own. So we just want to make sure everybody realizes that and then that it gets on the projects in one way or the other.
Yeah, I'd like to add, Kat, depending on your client and again, the scope of work, Some clients don't mind seeing a line item for project management, but more often than not, that typically can be a sore subject with some clients. They get a little pissed off when they see that stuff. So you have to bury the project management time in other tasks, and you don't have to show them that unless they request that. But with your budgeting spreadsheet, I use like an Excel spreadsheet with 6 or 8 different tasks. Those are all linked to a main sheet that doesn't show all the backup. I can print off that main sheet and just give it to the client. It doesn't show any of the backup, but the project management is buried in there. So sometimes you have to be creative depending on who the client is.
Yeah, it is a real thing though. It takes time to be a project manager, so it's thanks, Mike.
Okay, great. So you may be asking, well, what is the marketing coordinator's responsibilities versus the project manager's responsibilities? So typically for the marketing staff would make sure that we're staying on schedule to meet the client specified deadline. We would complete the cover, the tabs, all the firm information, any resumes, project sheets, all of that background information for the proposal. And then, once it's complete, we'll compile it into one complete uneditable PDF. We'll make required hard copies and deliver or email upload as needed. And then before it leaves the office, typically we would prefer to do a QC review for tone, technical content, which includes the assumptions, any of that contractual or RFP content. And then we will also track that in Deltek, making sure that we're putting the link in the opportunities link tab and updating the stage as it progresses through the process. So very similar is the letter proposal process, which you guys will probably do the majority of on your own. But you'll want to make sure that you're using the correct letterhead. And then those proposal contents are very similar, but usually in the subject line, you want to make sure that you reference the proposal number, that we have the correct billing client information, and that the regards line has the project description and the location. Typically, those letters would include your project understanding, the scope, schedule, fee, and then reimbursables. And then any additional services, if necessary, you do that as a separate section or include that, just under different line items within your fee. And then reference to our inclusion of an agreement. Usually this is our terms and conditions. For example, the professional services agreement, which I'm not going to talk about today, but Sue will cover in session 3. So stay tuned for more on the professional services agreement. And then exhibits, if appropriate to document the project understanding, could also be included as an appendix or an attachment as well. And then for our safety note, make sure that projects involving fieldwork scope should include budget for safety. And that's your health and safety plan or any equipment that you might need. So where do you get the correct letterhead, you might ask yourself? Well, we do have on the intranet, we do have a location under operations forms where you can find all the letterheads for all the different offices. If you click on the heading, it would bring you to a drop-down menu. So each office has their own letterhead. You can get your brand new letterhead right from the intranet. So here's an example of what that letterhead would typically look like. You're going to have your date, you're going to have your correct client billing information, who it's going to, and then, here's sort of the regards line. It's the proposal for professional services, survey and stakeout at this location, and then there's our P number, and then we begin our letter. So that's what the format should sort of look like. And then marketing expectations with letter. Certainly, we are available to help oversee the branding, formatting, proofreading. After you've written the letter and it's ready to go out, we can do all of that stuff for you. We can also make sure that the client contact is correct, exporting the Word document to a PDF for you and renaming the file. And we can combine with those professional service agreements. And as I said, you'll see more of that in session 3. So here's sort of a letter proposal example. This is our professional services agreement. You'll see us here and then who the client is, and then the services are related to. This is where the proposal or project information goes here. And then you'll see this unsigned page. Exhibit A is the actual proposal. So here is the completed letter. In this instance, this was actually a redefined letter. We had sent them one and then they came back and asked for some changes. So we had to make a change, but we made those changes. Here's sort of that acceptance language, so that they can just go ahead and sign that sheet previous page. And then the term and conditions is your exhibit B, which we'll go through. And then that's all you have. You're ready to send it out. Does anybody have any questions?
I have a trick question.
Oh no, trick question.
Go back to the professional services agreement, which again, we'll talk about more later, but tell me, when you send this out, do you sign this or have your principal sign this before with the proposal?
We sign it after, right?
You sign it after.
Yes, the client should always
Ah.
sign it first.
Do we know why? Catherine's not allowed to answer.
They may have changes.
Yeah, because if we sign this first and they then mark it all up and say, oh yeah, no, we want you to provide liability insurance in the amount of $10 million, that we're not in a good spot. So yeah, this does not get signed until after the client signs it. So see, there's a question. Could you provide a little bit more detail on setting up our fee schedule? Fee schedule and where to find our team's billing rates, multipliers, and fee calculations for the 2023 rate? This is a big question.
It is a big question.
Yeah, I'm not sure how best to quite answer it. I know that I don't know, Chris, if you have something specific you'd like to say. I have some information on that, but
Yeah, I was going to say a lot of time it depends on the division. Some divisions use specific spreadsheets for doing their time, and a lot of times actually it really honestly comes down to the preference of the project manager. I know within my division we probably have 3 or 4 different spreadsheets that, depending on the project manager, which ones they use. So I would say we could probably get some examples of those to people, but we don't have a place where they're particularly stored. And I know that they were working on the 2023 rates. I don't believe they are on the intranet yet, but there is a section for rates on the intranet. Actually, I can bring up that because I was going to bring up the intranet anyways.
Won't that be covered in another session, and in the interim reach out to their biller?
Yes, that's probably
Yes, Jackie D'Agostino will cover that
Yes.
next session.
So hang tight. That's a great question.
All right. Thank you.
Chris, if you could though, if you wouldn't mind sharing your page and go to the operations GPS page and show folks where all the information is, or else I can do that if you'd like.
Yeah, are you seeing that on my screen here?
Let's see. So if you scroll up to the top and go to keep scrolling up. So under ops, go to quality GPS. There you go. So this is the page that we have that's now kind of a combination of all of our quality GPS program elements in our project. And so everything that a project manager would need, you could access from this page. So there's all the tools from the quality project program. Then there's quite a few links to the legal page, the ops forms page where the letterhead is, and other things are design tech, marketing, CRM Central, right? Which she showed you earlier. There's a bunch of other good links here. And then there's also, this is where we have our library of the pre-recorded presentations, the PowerPoints. So it's here as a good information resource. And there are some, there is a fee breakdown template, I think, on this page. And I don't remember which division it came from. It possibly is architecture, but if you wanted to click on that one, that is an example. Each division kind of has a different way of doing its calculations for proposals.
Hold on, it is opening here. It's in Excel.
It's thinking, huh?
Just a second.
So there definitely are tools, and each, like I said, like Chris said, the different divisions have different ways of doing things. But we're working on some all corporate, all company pieces.
Yeah, so this is one example. I know a few people in my division use this one religiously. So, they have it kind of broken down by division or service type. And then the different phases, and they can fill in their hours and percentages here. So, and then there's sort of more of a detailed breakdown below. So
Yeah,
and
we
there's
will review
different
all of this
tabs.
next session.
Yep.
Are there any other questions?
It looked like, so Catherine asked if we have an existing term agreement, does a professional services need to be signed? I don't believe so
Again.
unless something changes. Correct?
Chris, I'm going to address that next session also.
Oh,
Yep.
okay.
So you don't have to try to answer that.
Okay, great.
It's more good stuff to come. More good stuff to come. But this is all the perfect lead in, right?
It is.
I just want to have you guys for another minute or two. I'll just share with you the CRM Central page. So if you go to Marketing CRM Central, you can get it here right from the main page if you don't want to go under the Operations tab. But here's where you will find the live training videos here. And as I mentioned, we do have those timestamp references to all the different sections. So if you just want to go back and learn more about opportunities and proposal numbers, you can certainly go to this time and just watch that part of the video. Or if you'd like to learn more about CRM in general, you can go there. Here are those deep dive resources. At the holiday time, as some people have mentioned, we did our wreath campaign. There's a deep dive on how to add your contacts to receive the wreath. So you'll be well prepared for this coming year when we ask you to do that. But there's other things here on different specifics. We do also now have one for the go, no go form that I showed you. And if you click on this, this is where you'll find the instructions, but then also that Excel spreadsheet that I showed you, if you'd rather do it in Excel. We do ask that if you do it in Excel, though, that you still transfer that information to the Deltek Go No Go tab so that we can keep a record of that. But you can also save this right in the proposal folder as well. And then here's the manual for you. And we do have some frequently asked questions down below. Off to the right here at the top is where we have our help button. If there's something that's missing, or if that you can't find something, or you need help with something, you can certainly click this flag it button, fill in some information, and that email comes directly to me. So I will be happy to look at it and then see if I can help you at all. Oh, we have a couple more questions. Oh,
I just put a link in there to the municipal conflict list that you referenced earlier, just so people can see where that is.
Oh, yes, that's under operations too, right? Forms.
Yep.
So yes, you want to make sure that you're checking that list for any conflicts.
It's on the right-hand side in the middle of projects and forms.
Oh, there it is. Yes, New York municipal conflict status. So we currently only have this for New York. So if you're doing projects in other regions other than New York, you really don't need to look at this list. But just be aware that there may still be some conflicts that we should consider. But this is the list for your review. And if you can see, like for this one, New Rochelle, the client manager is Ed Larkin, and we're completely restricted. But if it said, I don't know if there's another one, like, this one says no private work until the plan is done. So there's different things for each municipality that you'll just have to look at, and you may have to reach out to that client manager just to double check on something or make sure that we're not infringing on any conflict of interest.
Yeah, I'd like to add something there too. If it says completely restricted, don't freak out, reach out to them, because there are instances where we may be able to do work in those municipalities, but you have to go through the client manager. I just did a small project in New Rochelle. It says we can't do work in New Rochelle. We did work in New Rochelle. We just have to make sure that it's work that doesn't go in front of the municipality. And there's a lot of other nuances that the contract manager is going to be able to help you with. So just wanted to throw that in there.
Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it.
Great. And then if you scroll all the way down to the bottom on this page, you'll also find the templates. And here's where you'll find the letterhead. If you click that, obviously, then all of the office locations come up and you can click that. And then the Word document is available for you to use. We also have the meeting agendas, minutes, memos. We have our PowerPoint template, report cover templates. All of that is here under the templates for your use. So Any,
you very
any
much,
other
Chris.
questions?
Chris, just a quick question. Is in that the marketing section for Deltec to set up a dashboard? Is there information on that, how to set that up and what you want to include in there?
We don't
open
really have
pictures?
a section. I have a brief section on the dashboard, but not anything in depth. I had been meeting with some of the divisions individually to help people set those up. So if there is a need for specific Deltec dashboard items, you can certainly reach out to me and I'd be happy to show you how to do that.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
All
right.
right.
I think we're good. We still have 5 minutes to spare.
Well, thanks everybody. I think this was two good sessions with lots of good information. So unless anybody else has a question, I think we will give everybody back 5 minutes of their day.
All right.